Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all those who are connected to this webinar of the European Society of Medical Imaging Informatics. This is the first webinar that the Society performed as part of an educational program that will start next week and is oriented to provide regular updates on relevant topics in image informatics. I introduce myself. I am the president of the society and associate professor of radiology at the University of Pisa. Today's seminar is aimed at providing an overview of the educational program for 2016 and the scientific plan of the society. First of all, I wish to thank, in particular, the many webinar attendees that today, as you can see from the slide, are connected from Austria, Belgium, Canada, France, Germany, Iran, Israel, Italy, Poland, Romania, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, the Netherlands, United Kingdom, United States of America. I'm sorry if I miss some that have registered later on. I would first point out that the European Society of Medical Image Informatics is a scientific society with a long tradition. This slide from a few years ago recalls the long history of this scientific society, witnessed by the various logos shown here on the right side, starting with the first one of the group of first one that was made shortly after birth in 1986 by Heinz Lemke, a founding father of the European Society of Picture Archiving Communication System. To be in step with the evolution of radiology informatics in 2014, the Society has renewed the name and its mission statement through a consensus among the board members and a direct consultation of its members, who suggest the topics and main fields of research toward which the scientific society is moving in the imaging informatics field. The new mission statement reads therefore as follows. The vision of the society is the integration of IT, of information technology, with diagnostic and therapeutic medical imaging, fostering the transition from research to clinical application and education in the following fields: intelligent infrastructures and processes in medical diagnosis and therapy, clinical computer application of medical images, seamless information sharing, standards and quality. The renewal of the society has also passed through a handover between members of the board that made the history of the society, representing this slide, and that have received a recognition of the service at the General Assembly held during ECR 2015. They have all our recognition because their contribution to the image informatics is not definitely handed, but they have continued and they continue to play a key role in this area, operating at various levels of the European Society of Radiology and other scientific societies. The continuity with the work done by the previous board is guaranteed by the new members that are represented in this slide. Each of them play an important role in the growth of the society, making a major contribution with new ideas and enthusiasm. I thank all of them. A breakthrough that was made by the Society has been the affiliation to the European Society of Radiology that allowed EuSoMII to be recognized as the scientific society of reference for radiology informatics within the European Society of Radiology. The board members are therefore part of different committees of the ESR, as hereby listed: the Research Committee, the Education Committee, the Subspecialty and Allied Science, the Professional Organizations Committee, eHealth and Informatics Subcommittee, Management in Radiology, and the RSNA ESR Template Lab Advisory Board Panel, on which we will talk about in the next slides. An important role for the scientific society is played by the website, whose manager is the board member Professor Peter van Hooyen. The site is available at www.eusomii.org. In the website you can find information on all events that the society organizes and that follows, as well as information on the most relevant events on imaging informatics and radiology. On the first page, as you can see, the Today webinar is announced. It is also advertised the society presence on various social media such as Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter. So I would like to invite you to visit our website, and if you are registered on social media, I would invite you to follow directly EuSoMII activity through these important communication tools. Here is a grab of the Facebook page of the society, followed by many colleagues and members, where you can find fresh information about the events organized by the EuSoMII. Especially you can see the front page announcing the annual meeting taking place in Valencia on 6-7 October 2016, and which I will discuss about later in this presentation. So if you are on Facebook, I invite you to put a like on the EuSoMII page and follow us. An important tool of communication of the society with its members and with the scientific community, with the industry, is represented by the annual newsletter that is now constantly published since 2012. Even this year, the editor-in-chief, Dr. Mansour Fateh, is already working on the preparation of the edition 2016 that will be available and distributed during the next ECR in Vienna. All the previous newsletters are available in PDF format on the EuSoMII website on a dedicated page. So please go to the EuSoMII website and download the newsletter, because the newsletters are freely available. An important aspect of EuSoMII is that it is a stakeholder of the European Institute for Biomedical Imaging Research, IBIR. IBIR is an important institution for promoting research in the radiological scientific community, with a multidisciplinary vision. IBIR provides support for participation in research projects and in the search for funding. EuSoMII is part of the Scientific Advisory Board of IBIR. As scientific society, EuSoMII needs a constant cooperation with the industry. I therefore wish to once again thank the corporate members represented by Agfa, Bracco, Bayer, First Class, Fuji and Vital Images. EuSoMII has a strong commitment for the image informatics community. On one hand, to provide education in the field of image informatics. On the other, to create and promote a link between research and clinical practice. The image informatics community is characterized by a true multidisciplinary group, composed by physicians, computer scientists, technologists. These are the typical component members of the European Society of Medical Image Informatics that cooperate in the basic research on the benchtop and in the clinical practice to the bedside near the patient, and they share their experience and get mutual information. One of the most difficult tasks in image informatics is to maintain the link between research and clinical application, where the latter is the heaviest task, in which the implementation of a new tool, the validation and the clinical use are not taken for granted. It is therefore essential that the basic research is guided by the clinical needs. This is the EuSoMII motto, linking research to clinical practice. And one essential component of this link is represented by the education. EuSoMII has experienced, since 2009, a specific education program called Academy, based on face-to-face and hands-on training of radiologists on the clinical use of workstation in a classroom-style format. This format revealed many potentialities and appreciation from the attendees, but at the same time cannot be granted for many users and is quite expensive to carry on. Therefore, the Society decided to expand the educational program with the introduction of webinars. Webinars have the potential to reach a huge amount of people, do not require attendees to travel, can be interactive, are reproducible, and have also many other advantages. So, here find the list of the webinars planned for January and February 2016. The first one being the Today webinar. All the listed webinars are actually free, open to the general public, and the registration is limited up to 200 attendees, so that the registration is on a first-come, first-served basis. In the near future, the webinars will be limited to the EuSoMII members only. So let's talk about the webinars. The next webinar on Monday, January 18, is about computer-aided diagnosis, focusing on the development steps of a CAD and the clinical application. Speaker of the webinar is Professor Daniele Regge. Professor Regge is Associate Professor of Radiology at the University of Turin, Chair of the Department of Radiology of the Institute for Research and Treatment of Cancer of Candiolo. He is a President of the European Society of Oncologic Imaging. In his research, besides taking care of many topics in the field of oncologic imaging, Professor Regge devoted most of his research efforts to the development of OCAD systems, One area of particular interest has been that of CT colonography, where he developed a CAD for the identification and detection of polypoid lesions. This system, from a research phase, was introduced in the clinical practice and became a real industrial product. Professor Regge then continued this research devoted to the development of CAD to support the diagnosis of cancer of the breast and prostate, although this activity has already produced a significant research. Here an example of how a CAD of the colon is developed. On one side, the development of a basic software that is trained to recognize polyp-like lesions with different curvature, shape, borders that imply a dedicated team of researchers that build the software with different components. Has the image segmentation tool for the extractions of the colonic surface, the rendering of the colonic surface by dedicated visualization tools with wireframes, the adoption of mathematical models that are able to define and extract polyp-like shapes. On the other side, the introduction of the software in the clinical practice, where a proper user-friendly interface must be designed to facilitate its use by the radiologist, and where the software is tested on the real patient and trained on real cases. This complex and difficult process, on the basis of a large research and clinical experience, will be presented by Professor Regge in his webinar. On Monday, February 1st, the webinar will be focused on radiology reporting, and particularly on structure reporting, where Professor Charles Kahn will be the guest speaker. Professor Kahn is Professor and Vice Chairman of Radiology at Penn Medicine, Philadelphia. He is the Chair of the Structure Reporting Subcommittee of the Radiological Society of North America, and has been, with Professor Kurt Langlotz, founder and leader of the Structure Reporting Initiative of the RSNA. Professor Kahn spent large part of his research activity in image informatics, with particular focus on structure reporting and development of ontology, as it is testified by a partial literature search that I have made, restricting the research only to imaging informatics topics. Professor Kahn will focus his lectures on how radiology reporting will change in the era of personalized medicine. As a matter of fact, structural reporting has many advantages because it improves the communication between radiologists and referring physicians, has a standard lexicon, the information in the report become more accessible and reusable, allow a quality control, easier tracking of image analysis and interpretation, allow seamless information sharing, storage, and analysis of imaging biomarkers on a large scale, like in clinical trials, audits, imaging biobanks. But on the other hand, the implementation is not easy and not yet realized in the clinical practice because of the difficult initial clinical acceptance of the itemized reporting, typical structure reporting, difficulties in radiologist acceptance, referring physicians acceptance, the need of a learning curve, and the initial increase of the reporting time, typical of the initial implementation of structure reporting. There are also difficulties in the technical implementation. There are no guidelines and no standardized format among vendors. So, to facilitate the process of implementation of structured reporting in the clinical practice, under the guidance of Professor Kahn and Professor Langlotz, the ERSNA has developed a dedicated website for the collection and validation of reporting templates in multiple languages with individual contribution, RSNA members, or institutional and scientific society supported templates. Such initiative has been the starting point for a more advanced collaboration with the European Society of Radiology. And in 2012, Professor Kahn joined the ESR e-Health and Informatics Subcommittee, chaired by Professor Osman Ratib. In 2013, an active initiative or recruitment of delegates from different national society and first education and training webinars has been promoted. 2014, after initial proposal for a joint project management submitted by Charles Kahn and Osman Ratib, a formal agreement between ESR and RSNA has been finalized, and a formal signature of Memorandum of Understanding between RSNA and ESR has been signed in October 2014. To foster the joint ESR-RSNA initiative on statutory reporting, a template library advisory board panel has been created, selecting experts from both societies. The team represented in this picture had a first meeting in 2014 at RSNA in Chicago and a second meeting this year in 2015. The panel aims at promoting the development of reporting templates and their implementation in the clinical practice. On Monday, again February 15, the webinar will be focused on a very hot topic: social media in radiology. The guest speaker will be Dr. Eric Nanschert. Dr. Nanschert is a radiologist working in the Department of Radiology of the Jerome Bosch Zienkhuis Teaching Hospital and Chief Medical Officer of the EuSoMII company. Dr. Nanschert is member of the EuSoMII board and of the ESR e-Health and Informatics Subcommittee, and he spent large part of his scientific activity in the field of imaging informatics, with particular focus on teleradiology and social media, topics for which he led on behalf of the ESR electronic surveys among members of the society. As shown in this slide, Dr. Nanschert has been a pioneer in monitoring the role of social media in radiology, since he developed the first mailing list of radiologists and for radiologists in Europe, called EuFora, European Forum for Radiologists. That was the era before Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, and communication among radiologists was only made possible by website, email, or news groups. Moreover, the use of social media was not yet in the DNA of radiologists, and the communication, the exchange of professional information, was very limited. This was the key of success of the EuFora mailing list, which collected a huge amount of members among radiologists in Europe and became one of the most powerful communication media. Dr. Nanschert continues his efforts in this field, as testified by a literature search, and very recently has been working on evaluating the impact of social media in radiology, publishing a paper in Insight into Imaging, official journal of the European Society of Radiology. The impact of social media radiology is so evident that both RSNA and ESR have their own Facebook pages, Twitter accounts, that facilitate the communication with its members and with the scientific community. However, such communication tools are nowadays adopted by individuals, scientific societies, online journals as one of the most diffuse among radiologists, hunt meaning. The last webinar in February, on Monday 29, will be dedicated to a really relevant topic for the radiological practice, the standards in e-health. The guest speaker will be Professor Peter Millenberger, Professor of Radiology at the University Medical Center in Mainz, Germany. Professor Mildenberger has been a member of the board of the Europac Society, and he is since years the chair of the Management in Radiology subcommittee of the European Society of Radiology. He has constantly played a key role in this field, being the user co-chair of Integrated Healthcare Enterprise Europe. In his role, he has gained large experience in the field of management, quality issue, information technology, and standards in radiology, and is one of the most accredited experts in the European radiological panorama. As testified by this literature search of the curriculum, Professor Middelberger, the knowledge of standards is extremely important for the radiological practice, even if the practicing radiology is not very much familiar with these issues. However, every radiological exchange of information that regards images and patient data is heavily dependent on the use of standards, from the basic DICOM to the more advanced IHE profiles within and beyond radiology. So even if standards look like a topic for an elite of experts, they should be one piece of the basic knowledge of the radiologist. All these free webinars will be available on the EuSoMII YouTube channel. You find a web address, but you do not need to take note, since a simple search of the EuSoMII channel on the YouTube website will direct your search to it. So please enjoy these webinars that you will be able to see anytime you wish on demand. On March 2016, there will be a specific joint initiative with our sister society in the United States, the Society of Imaging Informatics in Medicine. SIM has already started a series of webinars. Therefore, we agreed to carry on some joint webinars in March and offer them to the members of both societies. Very soon, information about the topics of these webinars and dates will be provided on the EuSoMII website, on the EuSoMII Facebook page, and through the Twitter accounts with some tweets to the members. Very soon, we'll be in Vienna for the ECR 2016 from 2 to 6 March. As a tradition, EuSoMII has cooperated to the development of the Computer Application Scientific Program of ECR. Professor Daniele Regge, member of the EuSoMII board and chairman of the Computer Application Subcommittee, has been successful with the help of the subcommittee members here listed, Dr. Bricol, Dr. De Brugin, Dr. Kotter, Dr. Morozov, Dr. Pokhizer, and Dr. Salvador. They have designed an excellent image informatics track, and as you can see, the program will cover very hot topics in image informatics, with refresher course about daily use of mobile device and the future of PACS, as well a new Horizon session about big data in radiology and a special focus session about taking imaging to the clouds. So, we wish to see you in Vienna for ECR and especially at the Society booth that will be located near at the ground floor and near the ESR Welcome Lounge. At the booth, we will distribute the EuSoMII newsletter and the preliminary announcement and call for abstract of the annual meeting. And with regards to the annual meeting, this year there will be a special news about this, because it will be a joint conference between the European Society of Medical Image Informatics and the European Society of Oncologic Imaging. So attendees could take advantage of both society meetings in the same place with a joint session about imaging biomarkers in oncology. So my presentation is finished, and now the chat for questions is open. You can use the chat box to direct questions to me.